through them and see. There we go.
And beverages.
But that's
We will be getting further information out on that later, yes, sir.
And we're starting to take money as soon as possible on that one because we only have really 2 meetings before, right? June.
This is Gary. Can the participants hear me?
Well, July, we'll have a meeting in July.
All right.
It'll be a demo.
Okay.
I'm gonna get to that in a second.
Yeah, but the demo is, we're gonna have, you're gonna have to pay for that one too.
No, the demo's gonna be free.
This is Gary.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent an email on, yeah,
Okay.
to the board. Okay. Never mind. Internal chair. So Matt Monaco, the September 26, 27, 28, tremendous opportunity. Matt is a very talented professional wood turner. He's one of the key demonstrators at the AEW symposium this year. We'll be getting more information out on that soon. Maybe I'll, if I get my act together, I'll get something out on newsletter somehow.
It's picking up my mic.
So the next meetings, June 1st, Bob Leonard is going to demonstrate state deeds of courage boxes. And we will also have a representative from Children's Hospital of Wisconsin who we give our deeds of courage fulls to. She will be here to give about a 10-minute talk. So that is the June meeting. And then July, we're doing something different. We're not going to have a July Monday evening meeting. We're going to have a Saturday demo. There'll be no charge. It's from 9:30 to 4. It's Rob Nelson. He's going to demonstrate hollowing and either any updates, Mary? Calabash bowl or enclosed bowl, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
He's gonna do a demo and then he's at the clearing this week, so he'll do it next week.
yeah. So, but what we decided to do, since we're gonna have a paid demo in September with Matt Monaco, we didn't really want to have 2 paid Saturday demos. So we're gonna do this one at no charge, but the trade-off is you have to bring your own lunch. And so we'll take about a 45-minute break, somewhere around noon on that Saturday. And if you want to go out for lunch, you can. If you want to bring your own lunch, you can. But then we can make it free to everybody. Typically, when we do something on a Saturday, we're paying somebody to fly in or to travel in, or putting them in a hotel, etc. Rob is a professional wood turner, but he lives locally, so we don't have we'll have expenses, but we won't have the travel expenses. So that's what's coming up. It'll all be in the newsletter. Next shop day is May 16th. If you're not familiar with the shop day, Tony organizes that. It's on a Saturday morning down here, 9:30 to noonish. We bring the lathes out. We have 4 lathes, and there are mentors here to help you with whatever. Last month we had people working on pens, working on bowls, and working on sharpening. So it's kind of whatever you're interested in. We'll find a mentor to help you for that. The last announcement, really, before we get into the extended show and tell tonight, is that we're back to looking for a leader for the youth turning project. So, as you recall, we had the wood raffle. We raised a couple $1,000 to buy tools and equipment and safety gear. And the idea was we were going to have youth in here, and we were going to introduce them to turning, help them turn a pen or something, an introductory project. But we're really looking for somebody to lead that. We had a leader, but he had some personal things come up and is not able to continue. So we really need somebody that would be willing to run that. You don't have to be a turner yourself. You just need to be able to organize and lead. Because there are enough people here that will help you. There are enough mentors. There are enough people that will help you plan this. But we would really like somebody that's not currently on the board to take that. So see me or anyone on the board. And if you think you might be interested in that. So what I'm afraid is if we don't get somebody to lead that, we're just going to have to cancel it. And then we will have to, I think the right thing to do would be to donate the money to a children's charity of some sort. I don't think it'd be right for us to keep that. So. Give that some thought.
Okay,
Yes.
you mean like, what's the vision that you come to meetings and you have Saturdays?
For the youth during.
Yeah.
So here's the big high level vision. We organize. Something down here, possibly a Saturday, possibly a Sunday. We invite youth groups, so they could be 4-H groups. I don't know if they call them Girl Scouts anymore, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, just say Scouts. So. Yeah, or schools, we could reach out to schools and offer. Go to their shop teacher and say, hey, we're interested in introducing. New people to wood turning. We'll provide everything. You just bring the youth. And we could do maybe 4 at a time, so not a big group. And we have mentors here in term 10. But to do that, we have to decide, okay, what are we gonna buy for equipment? We need to buy safety gear, we need to buy turning tools, we're thinking probably carbide tools that here to learn. And it just has to be organized. And somebody to lead it, pick a date. And there are people that will help, but somebody's got to step up and say, yeah, I will be the leader. That's what I'm looking for.
How often will this occur? How often will this happen?
So that's all to be determined. It's a green field right now. It could be once a quarter. That might be enough. Or if somebody wants to go at it a little harder, it could be once a month. But maybe once a quarter to start. But we have some youth groups in mind. We make contact with 4-H groups, for example. There's a former member, deceased member, who worked with the Masonic Lodge, and they have a youth group. So I have that person has followed. So we've got some contacts, we've got some ideas. We just need to lead. Okay. I believe that's it. So this evening is the extended show and tell. So this is an opportunity to show more than just a couple things and to go into more detail if you would like. So, and also we come up, Jay Giuliani, where's Jay? Raise your hand back there, has done some 3D printing. And so there's they're at the end of the table, they're giveaways. So there's like a 3D printed square, a center finder, and an angle page. And I think some of them you were putting walk-area wood turners on, right?
Yeah, I kind of lost the file.
Oh, you lost that. Oh, also, so everybody that does a show and tell item, I'm gonna hand a ticket for the raffle tonight. So. Well, maybe we have to take it. No, that's okay. You can donate it to someone else. So that's the plan. Any questions before we get started with extended jump down? By the way, we'll take a break at about 7:30 or so, or 8. Oh. George, remember, yes. Okay.
Oh. Jessica Williams just signed up last week. Back in February, and he said he's gonna sign up, and here's the day to sign up.
Okay, so show and tell, it would be orderly if whoever is up here would go first, and then we'll just work our way down to there. So I see like a nice lidded box right there.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Or that hole. Either one.
Slid from.
Oh, what's this? Jim. Yeah, I want you to start.
That's probably next speaker.
And
It would be that, hey, you should set your thing here and then
Go get it.
talk to the mic there.
Well, that's just nice thing, it won't-
It's been working.
Yeah,
I've been in here a couple of times testing stuff out.
Maybe reset it.
So this is my attempt at the mushroom that was demonstrated last month. The piece of mulberry. Couple days after that meeting, I saw a pile of branches on the side of the road. Picked them. I didn't have the fancy jaws that he was, sorry, no good jaws. And it worked okay, but I did bring the center up to hold it. Beginning. So that was fine. And so recently I've been wanting to do something at grade turning. I haven't really done that at all. And play with scrapers a little bit. So I started with this one. This was a piece of wood that I got from the raffle. I'm not sure what kind of wood it is. So that was one that I did. And it turned out pretty good on the inside. And then here's the smaller one, is a loose fit cap with some texturing on the inside outside. This one's a cherry. And then talking to John Benke, he suggested I get into negative rate scrapers, which was in the back of my mind, but it was like, really, it's just a variation of not tipping the handle. But he talked to me into trying it, and we did some reshaping of some of my scrapers, and so then this was my practice piece, and it turned out okay, and I thought, wow, okay, I'll make a lid for it. And yeah, the inside is really smooth and nice from negative rate scraper.
Jim, would you hold the bowl towards the camera so we can see the inside?
Like that.
Let me-
Oh, did you?
Thank you.
And then, so this is a piece of maple, and I intend to, the centers came together, and there's a hole through here, so I'm gonna make the bottom and put on the inside of here yet. And this is cone dried walnut, and I remembered, I don't like turning cone dried. And use cherry for the pinion.
Kevin, give me 1 minute here.
No.
If that works.
Okay, my name's Carl Gress. I know some of you, but I've been out of touch since July. My wife got cancer in July. But I'm back
Can you come over to the speaker or to the mic?
right here. So I have a piece of wood that I bought at from the auction, and here's a picture of it. And I know that I gave Hank this blank because it's from Mark Trenier's Niece's Tree in Racine. So it's a beautiful blank. He roughed it. I finished it, so I put both our names on the bottom. That was that one. This was a set of 3 blanks, if anybody recognizes them from the raffle. And I just turned this in the last couple days. And I'm sending it out to an artist, Navajo artist out in Colorado that's making a couple pieces for me. So barely can turn it. It's almost too funky, but you can do it. But you couldn't put a bead on it. The bead's just disintegrated. I was smart enough to try it here because I knew it was going to cut it away. But general finishes, Armaseal on both of those. And then there's pictures that describe how this happened. But Jerry Takis wanted to, he saw something like this online, but you could take 2 little garbage pails, or you could do whatever you wanted, but we made our own shape. So I turned a wood bowl, and you can see the pictures. And then he glued pine cones 1 inch thick all the way around the inside. And then I did another bowl that was the plug. So now you just have to put epoxy between those 2 wood bowls. You'll see the pictures of it. And the epoxy takes 3 days to set up. This started blue and yellow. And we thought some would say yellow, some would say blue, and some would turn green, but it all turned green. And it leaked. So the last thing Jerry did was pour solid blue around the top before he told me. And I thought, oh, why did you do that? But it turned out absolutely gorgeous by doing it. And this is just kind of a wax, polish to a wax finish. But it's all pine cones with a cherry burl base. And if you look at the pictures, we only did 2. The second one turned out more spectacular. I got the first one and you got the second. But if anybody has questions, it's pretty cool, pretty fun.
So you molded it oversized and then came back and turned it, or is that, did you mold it to find the size?
See pictures?
Yeah, how much room was in between the two?
What is?
Okay,
So, I don't know, can we see pictures? Probably not.
you gotta look for this one,
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture there. But here you can see there's just an inch between the 2 bowls. And then you pour the epoxy in there and then turn, just come and look at it, break. But then you turn away all the inside wood and all the outside wood and all you have is epoxy and pine cones and the base. So we kind of guessed on how to do it, but it worked out really good. So. We got,
were they, Matthew, three always asking?
yes. Once it started to get into stringers, you know, you can string pretty long.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty neat. But definitely we're a mess. Excellent. What I need. I come home with these and do it.
So, the theme for Night Show and Tell this evening is, turning burls. So this is a piece from the wood raffle where we raised the money for the youth learning project. This was probably about like this. It was already cut round. It's, big leaf maple from Oregon. So I poured the piece. This was the inside, the smallest one. So I had like, well, I think 3 or 4 more. But I'm not in any rush. I figure this is like a lifetime piece of wood, so I'm not in any rush. But it's a pretty awesome burl. It's got these little spiky things on the top, which I thought were cool. So I left them. Some people thought I should have turned the spiky bits away. But I liked them, so I left them. And I left it thicker up here. I think the next one, I'm gonna leave it thicker at the rim, but I will probably make the inside taper in and make that a little thinner. But beautiful piece of burl. And this Figment Jerry tack, this is like a little piece of cherry burl that Jerry gave me. And it's just a really pretty piece of wood. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to just talk a little bit about turning burls. The program committee made a trip to see someone who turns a lot of burls. We were trying to recruit him to come down here and do a demonstration, but in the end, he decided he didn't want to do that. So I'll just share a couple of things that I learned that paid off turning these burls. And what he said was a burl, it's really pretty, the grain's going all over the place, but there's a lot of voids, cracks, splits, bark inclusions, things like that could potentially be dangerous. So as he is turning these burls, he's filling all of the cracks with thin CA and then hitting it with accelerator, because if you don't hit it with accelerator, you turn the lathe back on, all that CA is gonna fly everywhere. So as you're turning, you're filling up the cracks and voids with thin CA to keep the piece together. If you're concerned about the piece coming apart, safest thing would be probably not to turn it. Or if you do decide to turn it, just keep your speed under 1,000 RPMs. And then if the piece comes off the lathe or a chunk comes off the lathe, it's probably just gonna roll right on the floor right in front of you. That's been my experience. It just rolls on the floor as long as you're under 1,000 RPM. The other thing about CA, if you're gonna do this, is don't plan on sanding the CA stains off the wood. So you're filling the cracks and you're turning as you go. But you really need to plan to turn everywhere you've had CA dribble or leak or run, you're gonna have to turn that over. If you don't, that dark stain is gonna stay there. You won't be able to sand it out. You can't sand that much wood. So just plan to make one more pass or negative rate scrape it or whatever, and get rid of that last bit of CA. Carl,
Just, maybe everybody knows this, but if you don't have a million cracks and you're just doing a couple. If you put like a cellulose sanding sealer all around that edge that you're gonna put CA on. That CA can't get through the cellulose sanding sealer, and it makes for a lot easier cleanup after the fact, because it doesn't get the stuff into it.
right, yeah, that's another way to do it. I use shellac, so if you buy shellac in a can, buy the universal sanding sealer, that's a 2 pound cut, no wax. So because it's de-waxed, it won't interfere with any other finish under it or over it. And it will sand away easy, and then we can get rid of the CA that way. So that's another way to do it. The other thing I wanted to mention is you can see there's a bark inclusion here. So thin CA is really good for stiffening up that bark inclusion so that you can turn it. And the last thing I wanted to mention that we learned is with burls, there's lots of little cracks and fissures, and you can put CA in there, but to make it a little less visible, you leave a little bit of a gap there, and then you can fill that with whatever finish you're going to use and sanding dust. So this was cherry burl, so it's cherry sanding dust. I put finish in there, dribbled some sanding dust in there, a little bit more finish, just kind of smooth it out. And that will also disguise some of those cracks. And that, if you use finish, you don't have to worry about it staining because it all blends together. It's a nice way to fill little defects. It's not the same as, say, filling a big defect with epoxy, coloring your epoxy, filling it in a crowd, and then sanding it or cutting it level. That'll make a nice level finish. This won't quite level because you'll probably pull some out when you wipe the piece down. But that's a nice little trick. The thing though is, don't try to use that to fill a really big void because it stands out too much. It's more of a handy little trick for thin cracks, not big. If I did something this big with finish and sanding dust, it would look terrible. It'd just be a big blob of dark. So that's it. That's turning burls. Other than that, it's just like turning a regular piece of wood.
All right. I went to the, thank you, to the center thing in, Madison, Seed Center, is that his name?
Yes, you know.
And he did this, Kevin looked at this, I should use, softer wood, I think, but he used this, Liquitex, it's a rose gold. So you turn the gold, put poly on it, sand it, and then you put this on, and it's supposed to kind of fill the grain. And it did, but I know now I should have, watered this down.
Is that a correct key?
Yeah,
Straightforward correct key?
I think so.
Is it anybody cook? Yeah.
So how would I thin this? Does anybody,
With
Water?
Water.
with water?
Yeah, and then there are thinners, you can buy it called reducer or a medium.
Okay.
You put it medium, you know.
So it got too thick in some places and I lost interest in trying to make it look cool, so I burned it down. And this was, sadly, we had this 15 to 20 foot Japanese maple that died. And so the root was kind of twisty. So I started trying, it's really clunky, and then I was channeling you, Ron, because when I was sanding it, it broke. So I was, what is that, kintsugi or whatever, where you try to make something broken. Thanks again. So I need a attachment for the brake, it didn't need it, it's just decorative, and then put some cool light color in there. But that's Japanese maple. And then I was trying to make, there was this bowl that looked like a spaceship, but I realized I went the wrong way with the E versus the cove. But it's just black walnut, just trying new shapes. And then this is supposed to be an oval, and I don't know how to do that yet, so I have to work on that a little bit more. But I wanted to make it so you could, you know, when Alan Lacer was here and he did the boxes, and the boxes were, when they sat on the table, they looked kind of like they were sitting up off the table a little bit. So this one is sitting on the foot, but it looks like it's not sitting on the table, so. That's it. Nice. How you doing?
So, this is actually, someone requested this. I've been working on it for a while now, but, so this is, 18 segments per ring. And then, and the reason for the 18, I'm using 3 pieces of wood, I wanted 6 segments each. And do it that way, and actually, when I cut the segments, I cut enough for 2, so this is actually part of the second bowl. So the second one will be next, and then we'll still get it beat up. One of the things though is it's got floating center. So we don't have to worry about stress after a while. And the way I actually do that is I start with a face plate and glue the bottom ring to a face plate. And then I split that bottom ring and then turn a recess for that disc to sit into that. And then put the top of the ring back on it again. So now that ring, that center is trapped inside that ring, and then there's just a little bit, this is technically it's loose in there. And that way there's enough room for it to move if it needs to. And then build up from there. This one got fairly thin. It was I was a little bit concerned that it, as thin as it is, and they don't usually go that thin, but I use software to come up with the plan for the bowl itself, so it gives me the edge length, so the length of the pieces, and it gives me the thickness of what I need for the shape of the bowl that I'm turning. And I should have added on a little more so that I had a little more leeway. You know, because when you turn these, when you final turn them, you know, obviously there's steps as you drew them up. Then you gotta take all them high slots off, and then on the inside, of course, you got the same thing, and you gotta make sure that you catch it all. So that you don't end up with it in the corners. And then the bottom, I try to keep that, it's pretty thin here, but out here it's pretty good. So this is just, still got 2 coats of oil on it so far. I usually put 3 on, and then after about a week or so, I'll buff it out, and it'll make it nice and smooth and stuff, but. So the reason I brought this, and those that have attempted some segmenting and use hose clamps, and Jim, I think you use hose clamps, right?
Rubber band.
Rubber bands.
Yeah.
But they're hard to come by this big.
Yes,
Where you go?
Yeah,
You can get.
yes,
Right.
yeah, okay.
You can get them,
You line them stone,
yeah,
big bags, I mean.
right. But so a lot of times, a lot of people use hose clamps. Well, hose clamps, when you put a hose clamp on the ring and you tighten it down, well, where that point is, where it tightens down, where that screw is, it'll skew that ring, and you'll end up with oval rings and things like that. Not to mention, you got all the glue on the hose clamp after a while, and so they only last so long. So there is a guy in North Carolina. His name is Squirrel, and he does segmenting, and he does a lot of it. And he talked about this, and this is just called a string clamp. So this is just paracord and any kind of a block of wood, and then I drill a hole through the block, and then I sand a groove in both ends. So where that cord sits in, and so then you put the string on. You pull that cord tight up against and put it on it, and then you put the screwdriver in it and tighten it down. So all it does is, like, if I like loosening it now, so now it's somewhat loose. So once it's in there, you put the screwdriver in there, crank it up, and with the groove there, It holds the screwdriver in place and it's plenty tight. Even that much, and it's plenty tight to hold the ring. And it works great, and if you get glue on the paracord after a while, it's for a new piece. You know, it's simple. So I have a bunch of these, so that when I do out multiple things, you know, I just glue them all up and it works fantastic. The other thing is, and if you take a look at this ring after a while, this ring is right out the saw. There's no sanding on the edges or anything, right off the saw. And Jim uses sleds, but this is an 18 segment ring, so if you have a sled for 18 segments, you could make one. Right, you have to have a sled for each angle.
Correct.
So, and I do use it, you talked about these a little bit, it's basically a wedgie sled. And the nice thing is about the wedgie sled, it's pretty easy to get tight rings, and you get rings that fit this well. And I made my first sled of the MDF, and I used that for quite a while, and I changed table saws, so then I had to make a new one. And I ended up, there's a guy named Pete Markin, and he's a turner, he does segmented turning. And he's got a CNC and he makes wedgie sleds. So you don't technically need the wedges. So he's got the two fences, and then he's got holes drilled so that you can just drop in for whatever number of segments you want for the ring. So if you want 12 or 16 or 24, and it goes all the way up to 144. So technically you could make a 144 piece ring with the sled. It doesn't have two segments. So fortunately I have the wedges, and I can just take the wedge and put in there, lock the fences down, and it comes out perfect every time. You know, not to take away from the sleds work great. The thing is when you make the sled, you know, and you're probably pretty good at it now, and you can probably hit them pretty good, pretty quickly. But you have to test, you have to do a number of test cuts until you get that perfect, and then lock the thing down, and now you've got that sled forever, of course. But if you've got 6 or 8 different numbers of segments that you turn, that means you've got 6 or 8 sleds. And, you know, not everybody's got space to do that. Where this is pretty easy, you can change pretty quickly. And be different amounts of segments for regular people. It's an alternative. And well, yeah.
Question. How did you hold flatness? In other words, the joints are flipping and the work.
Right. When I cut the pieces that I'm gonna glue the ring, when we lived in North Carolina, I had a bench there, and the top of the bench was a piece of granite. Like granite flat. And now I don't have that, but I want to pick up a piece of granite about this big, just nice flat. It's good for flattening everything. But even if you got a flat, you know, and you know, melamine or something that the glue is not going to stick to is the best. But we could just lay it flat, put the clamp on it, flatten it down, and then you're going to be pretty good. And then use a 12-inch disc sander, or if you got somebody's got a bigger one. And I'll take that flattest side, you know, because if the wood's not all the same thickness when you glue it up, well, you're gonna have different heights on the other side. But one side should be close, and I'll just touch that to the disc sander and flatten that one side, and then I got a drum sander, I want to drum sander to flatten it out. But the other thing you can do is if you flatten one side of the disc sander and then put it on the lathe, folding it however you can. Then you could flatten the other side. But the one thing when I do, you know, like I said, I start out with a glue block, glue that first one on, glue that first ring on, I put the center in there and everything else. And then I've got a piece of MDF, double thick. So it's probably that thick and about that long, and I glue sandpaper to it. And so it's flat. And then when that's on the lathe, on that glue block, and you got a ring on there, you just stick that on there and run that against with that 80 grit, and it flattens out that whatever ring. Then you glue on that next ring, you know you're flat here, and then the other side is flat, which is the drum sander, and then you glue it on. So then when I glue on the next ring, then I'll put it back on the lathe on the base plate and hit it with that sanding block again, and that just proves it all out. And that keeps everything flat, because if you've got any kind of, and some guys will do it with a gouge or a skewer or something where they'll actually turn that thing, but I can't put it flat, not that flat. So that's why I always use the sanding block. The other thing that I have, for when I glue up all the rings, so once I've got the first one on, then I've got the center on here. Then I've got a little round MDF that's going round, and it's got a dimple in it that fits the tailstock. And I'll put some blue tape on here, blue tape on a button, and then glue it on here centered. So I'll have it on the lathe and I'll bring that at the tailstock, and then I know that button with that center is dead center piece. And so then I made a jig. I didn't come up with this, somebody else did. So I have a jig that's got, you've seen those pop-up sprinkler heads? Anybody? So this one pops up about that far, so it's this high. And it's spring loaded. And the top of it is turned to fit that button perfectly. And at the base of that is, like, there's a long width chuck over there, it's like that, where you, I take this ring, I'll set that on there with that long width chuck, and that'll center. And then I'll have glue block with the button, I'll put that on the top, push it down, I'm perfectly centered on the next ring. And then, put my glue on there, put some weight on top, let it dry. And then when you pull it off, it's pretty good center, because if you get, and you can kind of see, well, this ring would be here, I think, in the bowl. These top two rings are much thinner, and if you're off even an eighth of an inch from one side of the bowl to the other, that's then you know, you can't get thin enough.
And your rotation, are you just doing by eye? For indexing your rotation?
Yeah, in general, well, when you start out, I got it marked. I got the center marked so that I can get the first one. And then once I got the first one, now, because this line and this line and this line should all line up. So if you build a piece and randomly put them on, just that they're brick laid but not actually in line, they look funky at the end. So you always want the lines to line up, and especially if you got a piece that's taller, that's a lot of pieces, it really makes a difference. Because I mean, it just goes with saying that it's just gotta be that much more precise. The good thing about doing this kind of work is it takes time. And anyone that started turning bowls and you find out pretty quickly, I've got 3 dozen bowls, what am I gonna do with all these things? And you can't even give them away fast enough. Well, and that's what I ran into, was I had so many bowls, what do I do with them? So that pushed me to this, and this just takes time. You know, food time, there's planning time. I have software that gives me the plan and cut from there, and this one's been in the works. You know, it depends on, you know, if you feel like working in shop, then you load it on and then I'm shop. So, but this one's been in the works for a couple of months, and the other one you'll get pretty soon. So yeah, that's it.
What's the software? What's the software?
It's Woodturner Pro.
Okay.
And then there's can't think of his name off the top of my head. But it's Woodturner Pro is what I use, and he's got actually out some variations of that. He's got one that's segmented pro or something like that. And he's got a new one now, and I got Woodturner Pro, and he's actually got like lamination software, and he's got stuff in there where you can kind of make shapes and see things, and even in laminating for, like, if you're laminating for patents for cutting boards and stuff like that. Well, some of that comes into effect if you're making a feature ring and how those laminations come together, so it's got software for that also. And I bought the Woodturner Pro, and then he came out with the segmented Pro, which is a little bit different, and I think it's a little bit easier to use. But it can't do as much as what
the wood trimmer full can. And now the latest software he's got, I don't know for sure, you know, I've not seen it or really done anything with it, but I think one of the very easy on, but. They're supposedly pretty good, but even the one that I use, it's really nice because it, you know, you can basically find a shape or you can make the shape, you know. And it'll match the rings to the shape of the bowl that you're making. And there's a ton of things you can do easily, you know, change the width of the rings, you can change the sizes, you can, tons of things, it's really good.
See me at the break because one of the participants may have a piece of granite for you.
Awesome.
So there you go.
All right, thanks.
There's it's Lloyd Johnson that has that
That's it,
program,
yeah,
and you can get a 30-day free trial if anybody.
yeah, Lloyd Johnson, that's his name. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
My piece is, as usual, a little bit more artistic than empty. Functional, but probably not. But they look cool. And a couple of members already talked about, oh, you know, I used the wood from the raft. Well, yeah, this is from the raft from last year. It's a piece of sculpted maple, it's a large board. I still have a lot of it left. And it got a really nice look to it. It's a very simplistic shape. It's just large enough to put M&Ms in that about it. But it continues with the
Works for me.
Sculpted, a totally different piece of sculpted maple that I had. It was a lot of punky on this piece, but I was able to salvage enough. And the legs are copper. I have a number of different hammers that jewelers use that have different faces to the hammer. So I can stamp different shapes and different impressions in the copper. And to give it an interesting look to it. So that's a nice little piece. This one here is actually almost like a bin fold kind of shape to this vessel. It's a piece that I had quite a while. It never really worked for me. Stack and we had sort of like the shop in Netsu. It's an art meet for my wife and I. And it sat in that art meet for a long time. And nothing ever came of it, and then I decided to do something completely different with it. The wood was not that spectacular, so it wasn't worth preserving the wood. And so I just went in and turned with all these different ridges in here. Did the piercing and stamping, and completely covered it with like a tin of paint. And it actually looks like some old, if someone dug out some old Venetian tomb or something like that. It's really sort of interesting. The base is a little piece of cherry burl that I had left over from other projects. I did a small piece, and I thought, well, that'd be a nice little interesting base to it. And again, copper is bendum, a little bit of silver solid, and excessive use of my patina paint. Turned out really nice. And the last one is a simple little ash bowl again with stamping on the copper lettings, a different pattern to it. This and the inside turned out well, so do that. The grade that you know really nice. Wow, for that. Sort of almost a diamond pattern, star pattern. And I made a simple little lid for it. The little copper handle again stamped with that pattern. And then always heat the copper to anneal it, soften it, and I taper it and do all the narrowing of the copper, of course, way beforehand. Then I turn it on a simple little metal 30 jig that I have. That's the little thing I cleared in the device. That it's really nice in it. So anyway, that turned out really good best. There we go. Very nice.
So a year and a half ago, Jim and Greason brought in a bunch of glue ups So a lot of the segmenting on this is Jim's. I don't think I've shown this here before. And there was enough beef glue up that I could make the shape that I wanted to, so this is one of my favorite shapes, the ginger jar shape. I did do the segmenting on the lid, and of course it's threaded. And then I put the insert in the middle of the lid, so all in all, it's fairly decent. So, call me stupid or whatever, but I've been participating in some of the challenges that the AAW website has. And so last month, the challenge was to make an Oya. I hear that that's the way you pronounce it, an Oya. So that's an Oya, you might call it an Ola, but it's spelled O-L-L-A.
I call it remarkable.
So I didn't come in last, that's always good for me. If I had to do this over again, I'd do it differently. I like it from the rim to the edge, but I would have done this carving here. I would have been more of an echo of what I did on the top. So that's red oak. Sorry. A number of years ago, Dennis Model demonstrated something called a visualizer system, where he has a camera set up instead of a laser over his hollowing rig. And so I put one of those together recently at an old VGA monitor, and I bought a security camera off Amazon and bought an adapter to change that to a VGA signal. And I thought about bringing it tonight, but I'd have to take all those wires off my wall that I finally got routed halfway out of the way. And so I didn't do it. And so I've been playing with hollow forms lately, and it's fun to see just how thin you can get with a good system. And then the system I have is a home built.
On the carving, did you use a roller tool?
Yeah, I use that SCM air tool,
Oh, okay.
which is one of the high speed dental type air engravers. Yeah. So these are really not show and tell, but I think I have to explain. They'll go on the raffle table. I demoed for another club last month, and I made these put on the raffle table because I was demonstrating threading. What these are thread inserts, okay? And I'm gonna put them on the raffle table, and if you think you can make something with them, you're welcome to them. If you don't think you can make something with them, please just leave them there. I'll take them home at the end of the night. The small one, the sizes are such that you should be able to take a Forstner bit and size your hole, and this should slip right into a Forstner bit hole. One says 1.75, the other one says 1.25, so those should slip right in. I don't have a Forstner bit this big, so I tried to make it like 3 inches and I couldn't. It's 2.96, and then the smaller flange is 2.24. But you can get close and then trim those out with your box scraper if you want that negative rate box scraper like Jim was talking about earlier. So, all right.
Hey, we have some walnut, who's up next?
So I made I found this walnut. And it's 2 halves, so size of a log, some nice quilting. In both of them. And then, I forget who it was, someone told me to play with my bottoms finishing, because I was playing with that, so I had a couple of games. Other small one. This one I did today, it's a oak chunk that I got from some free wood on Facebook or whatever that my dad found. Check out. This was another one I did today. Home stove. So, this one was from our cabin and we were cutting it up for firewood for my grandma. And I was like, oh, I'll take some of that, cause it was like rotted on the whole outside except for the middle section. It had some cracks in it, but whatever. While I was turning it, there's some holes in it too from bugs. They were coming out because they were a little angry. Yeah, this is a maple chunk from some of the neighbors that got slapped. Finally got that. Do that today too.
Why did that whole school like that? I'm gonna go to.
So when you last eat them, you're done. Sure. Yeah, you don't have time.
Before I forget, I stopped at, John Thompson's sister-in-law's house. And they had, getting rid of some of John's tools. He said, the brother-in-law or sister-in-law said, the next phase is they're gonna go. They're gonna do his tools, his big tools, this is just, small tools. And she's supposed to call you. Okay.
Did she say what the big tools were? What are the table saws or what are they?
I know it's got a lathe, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. She told me that they sold the lathe.
They sold the lathe,
I don't know.
which are.
I know he's got a Jameson ring, I know that.
Yeah, when she contacts me, if, like, Tony sent out that email for the, equipment sale, whatever was this weekend, we'll do that again.
Might be small stuff.
Said she'd call us first, and give us first crack, so. Seeing Blake, I saw him there, and he's looking for anything to build his shop up. Okay, so I got a couple pieces, this is segmented, this is not, Jim didn't do this previously. And I built my own rings, Jim taught me how to do this stuff. And in between each of the rings, I have a piece of veneer. So, blue veneer, and I was cheap, so it took me a lot longer, normally you would just take a whole piece of veneer and put it through there. But I didn't have enough veneer of that color, so I had to cut each one the size of the biggest ring. And so I just enough left. So, you build the top, you build the bottom, and paint the inside blank. What's this one? This is a piece of walnut, where did I get this one from? Well, this is from a neighbor who was cut down the street. And I've been trying to get shiny, I like shiny. And this is the closest I've gotten to shiny, yet. And I have to go get some shellac, but my shellac that I had turned everything black. It can rusted it, so I gotta get some new shellac and I gotta try that. This was walnut. And this was honey locust that I got from the raffle table. And it's got a weird pattern to this. I just thought I'd make a little platter, throw things on. And I think it turned out nice. I like the graining that you have here. So that's what I did.
Let's take a 15-minute break. Are you staying?
Yeah,
Do you want to make your announcement
I
now?
can do it now, yeah.
Okay, Bruce has an announcement now. Sure. No, I didn't. I'll take two.
So I think it was about 3 weeks ago, we had a straight line wind come through. Got 5 acres and hundreds of trees. We lost about 50. And I'm still to talk a little bit. But I would like to see it go to a good cause instead of just firewood, so I'm just opening it up to the group. honestly, most of it is pine, but we got black cherry, aromatic cedar, ash, black walnut, box elder, and I'm sure there's other ones. It's challenging because the property is fairly hilly and other woods. But if anybody knows somebody at Sawmill wants to, I wanna just give it away free for the taking, so. See me, I'll put my email up on the board here, email me if you want to do it that way, but. If you know somebody that saw it up, or you guys want it for turning blanks, just pieces of it, or whatever, we can talk. We're just, yeah. Shooting something for tomorrow, right?
I'm worried, something I'd rather go week.
I'm north of McGonigal, so right by Burning Marsh and everything. See me if you'd like, if you're interested.
And I got a quick announcement, if anybody. If anybody is a pen turner, my smoke bush died this year. So it's a really nice orangey brown wood. So if anybody I brought a bunch of sticks in, I didn't put them on the table, I just figured. That's a lot of wood, so, but if anybody wants any, I got a bunch of sticks up here of smoke bush.
That's a little bit.
Okay, we'll start up again at 8:45, 7:45.
Volunteer to be in the leadership position and also to help. So we will be having a team forming call shortly, and we're going to get that on the road. So I'm very pleased with that. So thank you.
Hey, everybody, I'm Mike Wendt. Carl Thrust is my mentor. He got me started in all this turning. And I remember him saying one day, the hardest thing to do is make a set of plates that are all identical. So we're sitting around, I'm a winemaker. My wife and I enjoy having wine every night. And we've got a compost bin that's kind of close to the back door. There's always fruit flies in there. The fruit flies always fly into my wine. And as soon as I bring it up to my lips, I can smell fruit flies. They have a specific odor. And it's like, so I thought I would make these little covers that fit on the wine glass. And they have a little plate on top, so you can put your cheese or crackers. Right? So I challenged myself to make 6 of these. And I made them all as identical as I could. Right? So the technique that I used was I had a piece of walnut that was, I don't know, 3/4 inch wide. Then I cut a bunch of circles, 6 circles, and I taped them together with double-sided tape. And I put a waste piece on the back side, right? And then I could turn them all to be exactly the same diameter. Then from there,
That's smart, that's cheating, that's smart.
well, you challenged me, right? So then they're on there like this. And so the first one I did, I put a mortise on enough to be able to hold, to put onto a chuck. As soon as that was cut, I finished the bottom a little bit and then I put that one away, took it away and did the next one. So they were all identical, especially with a little gauge that I had to make the faces all the same. I kept going until I ended up with the last one. Then I turned them all over, stuck them back on the chuck, and I was able to turn the inside to be all the same. So it actually worked out I thought pretty darn good. So anyway, that was my project, so. Thank you.
Okay, I'm here to talk to us newbies, 2 years and under. Ron, Tony, those guys can take a nap right now. Well, I've heard, as I've been coming to meetings, I've heard a number of guys mention, I'd like to make a long with Chuck, I'd like to make a long with Chuck. So I looked up what the heck is a long with Chuck. And I found a plan. Basically, it's great for doing something different with the bottom besides just the mortise or a tenon. And, I mean, there's other ways to do it too. You use glue block, take it off that way. But I decided, well, I'm gonna try and make one of these things. So I did. I made it. It turned out pretty well. I brought this bowl simply because this is what I got out of this bowl. You can see what it does. The arcs here, reverse from the arcs here, some bolts and some beaker stoppers, but flat bottle stoppers is what it is. And the only place I screwed up on this, and I screw up on most things the first time through, is this is not dead center. And you can see a wobble in it. You can see that when I do the bottom, you actually can't see it really, but it's not perfect, but it's just a scooch off. So I'm thinking I'm gonna plug the bowl here and try and recenter that thing, although I haven't figured out how the heck I can do that, so I gotta think about that. But I've turned a few bottoms like this, similar to this. I've done tenons where I just kind of dish the bottom by putting this in here. It works. It works pretty well. There's a million ways to do it, but there's plans out there. If you're interested, I'll be happy to talk to you about my experience with it. Otherwise, YouTube is everybody's friend. Then, last month, Gary Shadley came in with, I think, 3 of these. This is his. Okay. So having no pride, I stole his design more or less. And I talked to Gary once in the process. I screwed this up too. Because when I drilled holes for my tenons, top and bottom, I drilled them 5/8 inch. It should have been probably more like 3/4 of an inch to an inch, so my smallest jaws would fit inside of it, so I could hold it. And in the process, I glued through the top and ended up, I just plugged it, and as I'm sanding it, the wood started feathering, so I put a little CA in there. It's functional, it's not perfect, but I was moved to do this because over 6 years ago, my wife went in for a mammogram in November, and in January, she had cancer, which didn't show up on the mammogram. And in February, March, the day the pandemic started, she had double mastectomy and 9 courses of chemo, lost all of her hair, like most patients do. And I remember her coming home one day from chemo, and she was a mess for about 2 years. Must have been messed up. But she came home one day from chemo and she said, they offered me a wig. What do you think? I said, what do you think? What do I care? Wore one of those hats for months on end. I said, your hair will grow back. But then Gary came in and she came home and said, a lot of the women have the wigs. And they just kind of lay them on their dresser. Yeah. And, well, it's just a good deal. I never gave it another thought, really. And then when Gary came in, I thought, I'm in, I'm gonna make these things. So, that's my story. I've made several bottle stoppers throughout the years, in fact, probably over 50 or 60 of them. And it's generally the same shape. I've made other shapes, but this shape, people really like them. They, you know, they fit nice, nice grip. And I usually make them out of walnut, coral walnut. And I've had actually an idea to put an insert in them now. Finally, I just started doing that, and my son was moving, and I was helping him move his wood pile, and there was a chunk of nice curly maple in there. So I took that and I'm cutting little pieces out of it, and it works real well for that. Actually, I had a piece of curly maple in this one at first, but the walnut is so light that it didn't have a real good contrast to it. So then I boarded out. I had some 1x4 solid vinyl trim, and I cut little discs out of it, and board that out and put those in to make a little white ring, and reboard it again, and then I put this piece inside of it, and it ends up with a little better contrast. And then I made this little actually a ring box for my wife, and she had always had a bad habit. When she goes to bed at night, she takes her everyday earrings out, which are just little stud earrings, lays them on the nightstand. And then in the middle of the night, she reaches for a Kleenex or something and ends up knocking them on the floor. And then in the morning, she's crawling around looking for her earrings. So I kind of got the idea, well, I'll make a little dished out area. She can just drop her earrings in there, and they'll be in her next morning when she goes to get them. The one thing she told me one time, she said her favorite earrings are those little clear sparkly ones called diamonds. And about 8 or 9 years ago, she said, it'd be nice if you got me another pair of diamond earrings, only this time a little bit bigger. Well, you know how that went over with me. Well, she ended up with her diamond earrings, but I ended up with a robust slave. Oh, this one actually, like they say, well, I didn't say, but it was kind of a prototype, and I'm gonna make one a little bit bigger. But all my finishes on most of my turnings are spray on lacquer, and it's from Mohawk. And it's actually a catalyzed lacquer. It's got a hardener mixed right into the can, and when you spray it on, 5 minutes later, you can sand it, you can touch it, you can do anything. I can finish a piece in half a day, where an oil finish you're waiting to overnight for it to set up and before you can use it again. And on my wine bottle stoppers, I probably put 10 or 12 coats on it, and within an hour or two, you got 10 or 12 coats on it, and I sanded every other coat, between coats. And then I, end up going through the different grits, end up with about 1,500 grit to finish, and then I use actually it's a DuPont auto finish buffing compound for buffing paint jobs and automobiles, and with that I very seldom put them up against a buffing wheel. It's all good sand polished and good.
Is that a spray can?
Yeah, yeah, Mohawk, I know they got Mohawk, spray cans upstairs, but they don't have the tag like it's like it. I ended up, ordering those from, Kingsport. I know they're ordering direct from, Mohawk. We won't ship them to, they got a hazmat, shipping charge on there, but if you, get it through Kingsport, they don't.
Look it up. You've heard this before tonight, but this is auction with, some kind of ambrosia maple, I think, it came out kind of nice, and the people I give these to all say, wow, how did you do that? And, I don't tell them. It's pretty easy. This more auction wood, I think it's cedar, but I honestly don't know. It wasn't labeled when I picked it off the pile. They just gave it to me in a bunch of crates. And then, this is oak off of my old pile. I get a lot of stuff for free because everything I make, I give away or do fundraisers and sales, and that all goes to a thing. So I have this group of people who drop stuff in my driveway on a regular basis, plus the wood fairy that lives 2 doors up and takes trees down for a living. That big piece of black walnut back there came from him the other day, and I have 20 just like it in the garage, which we'll get to in a minute. Oak, plywood, I like to sneak plywood in, please don't chase me out of here. And I'm not sure what this top piece is, maybe, yeah, I don't know. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. That was auction wood. The finish is, my finish is 2 coats of thin shellac as a sealer. I go over it with Yorkshire grit usually and call it a day. I don't like, no offense, but I don't like really shiny. I like kind of a sheen like you get with this maple. And then once in a while, I'll hit it with lacquer or something, but that's all I do. If anybody out there does pens, this is the same thing, except it's just 2 coats of thin lacquer. If anybody makes pens and can tell me how to make them so your fingers don't slide down, I would appreciate that little piece of information, because people are asking me to trade them for something that's not slippery. And last but not least, if there's anybody out there that wants to do me a favor, I just finished restoring a set of Witherby chisels from like 1870. I got the metal part down, it's a socketed chisel. I need 16 of this, but with the leather crushing on the back, or at least a tenon. If anybody wants to make me 16 socketed chisel handles that look alike, because I can't make 2 of anything that look alike. You have a free pass to hit my wood pile, which is substantial. It's half the garage probably worth of stuff. Just give me a yell. And that's all I got.
I'll hit it with more. Looks like Jim brought some.
Yeah, one more thing. On the 3D printed stuff, if you see something you want 3D printed, let me know. I will do it for free. The only thing I have supposed to do a job anymore is I do contract printing up in Sheboygan where I live. And people bring me filament. I print it, and whatever's left over, they leave with me, and I use it to print stuff for friends and stuff for whatever. Or if you have an idea for something, let me know. I can usually draw it up. Those speed squares, the little red speed squares that were up there, I drew those myself. And those were all the misfires, because they were supposed to have a ruler on them that wasn't printing. So I give them to the people that don't care.
Oh, another one of these. This is like John's, this is 24 maple segments per ring. This is probably like maybe 14 rings worth of inch tall, I think. This has kind of been sitting around. If you kind of feel the inside, it's not very good. This fell. I made like 5 of these, and this one fell. Broke into 3 pieces, and I kind of glued it back together. And
where I glued it is pretty camouflaged. If you feel it, you're gonna feel some ripples on it because they didn't wanna like turn any more from where the glue joints were. There's, it's not sealed yet. There's 192 divisions. It's Indian ink. Yeah, so it's one of those. A couple times, can you see something on my phone on with the camera?
I'll try.
Just a comment, John mentioned the wedgie sled, if you're gonna do some segmenting, a wedgie sled. The whole premise behind that is like blade verticality. So depending on how you have your table saw set up, if your blade is just off, just a smidgen. With the wedgie sled, you're flipping how you cut the segment, so you kind of squiggle line the side and on the top, and you alternate how you put those together. So what it does, it negates any kind of blade verticality. It's the secret word there. So that's kind of the basis behind it. Wedgie sled. The designated sled, if you're just gonna do, if you're gonna get into segmenting and do a variety of the number of segments, you're usually gonna do like half of whatever the other one, so you get the bricklet effect. So if you're gonna do like 24 segments, maybe you're gonna do like 12. 20 and kind of do that way. You do 16, maybe you're gonna do 32, 16 and 8, 48 and 24. You're usually gonna kind of stagger how you're gonna do those, that look at the bricklet effect. If you're just gonna do a few and kind of more shapes, like I have like a designated 12 segment sled and a 24 segment sled. And you talk about like, sometimes you get paralyzed, like, segmenting is gonna take forever. Get it, the cutting, the gluing, the math, and you get kind of overwhelmed with it. If you have a designated sled, and I know I've brought this up before, and I'm getting the same drum here, but with a designated sled, if you're just gonna do like shapes, 12 is like a really good number, especially for anything under maybe like 12 inches or so. And by taking the time to set up your one sled, you can have a permanent stop. And then you have spacers, which I brought before. You're never remeasuring. So you take the, whether you do software, do your math yourself, and do paper and pencil. You're never with your calipers measuring, you're never, moving that stop on the right side. Different, you have like, talked about millimeters. If you're gonna do segmenting, think about millimeters. If you're gonna do any woodwork, think about millimeters. It is so easy to work with millimeters rather than, you get a calipers. In fact, I was gonna bring it, and I should have. You get a calipers and, you're getting the, it's 1.234 is what my calculations gave me for my second one. Well, with your calipers, you are looking at that like 1.20, nope, 1.25 close, 1. If you, just to show you the difference between, what a 0.2 is and a 0.22 and a 0.2 is, and a 1 inch compared to a 1 1/16 inch, what it actually gives you that outside diameter. This isn't metal and this is not a finished product. You are making a ring that you are turning around, and there is a pile of stuff in the floor that you're turning. So, this, if you're using like real fancy wood, this is like really nice. This is sweet. This is calculated pretty close to its finished diameter. There's not like a lot of play here, even though it's that thin. This is pretty skinny. So if you're using fancy wood, you're gonna kind of get closer. If you're using just, basic whatever, you can kind of get a little more wider on your segment. Great plant, real small. So when he's talking about kind of a cool little kind of thing here, if you're gonna do more than a couple, you can buy on Amazon, rubber bands. Okay, so you can go to Home Depot and get big clamps, you know, the hose clamp. Size 84 rubber bands, which are like 3.5 inches, they're half an inch thick. This is not the rubber band that's on your, nobody gets a newspaper, but how they run. You know, not skinny little rubber band, it's a half an inch thick rubber band. Number 84 is 3.5 inches. That's good for making like a 7-inch diameter ring, okay? Right now, for $8.67, you get 150 of them. Okay, so, you know, if you're gonna just do a few. I don't have 150, you know, rope clamps. I don't have 150 hose clamps. I got probably half of that. I don't use them. So everybody wants hose. But just for instance, you can get size 107, which is a 7-inch rubber band. I think you get like 80 of them. And that's gonna be a ring maybe 14 inches that you can replicate. So, you know, rubber bands is a good option. Make sure there's a difference. There's a good rubber band and there's like a not so good rubber band. So, you know, the band clamps you're hammering, you know, it doesn't like self-center. A rubber band, things kind of like go out and kind of self-center. And you can literally close your eyes and feel the seam and get it like perfect. Rather than kind of tight, hammer, tighten more, smack it, hammer and more. Like you said, where the screw is, where that screw, if it's on the seam or on the flat, that makes a big difference. Rubber bands, you don't have those. So think about that option. It's a real inexpensive, great clamping mechanism. And if you, I should have brought a brand new size 84 rubber band is really tight. You're gonna be amazed at the pressure, and it's even pressure too. So kind of keep that in mind as an option. Let me just try to show one picture here real quick. And if you look on Facebook, I just posted, I'm making like a movie ribbon thing right now. And in the last 2 days,
In those rubber bands, you don't leave on overnight or you ruin them, don't you?
correct. So clamping pressure, if you kind of look up, you know, if you Google type, you know, they talk about how long you should leave a pressured clamp thing with, you know, so you're clamping something, clamp time, but it's not, there's no pressure or weight kind of the thing. They talk about like 20 to 30 minutes that you leave the clamp. So rubber bands, I'll leave on for about an hour and then take them off and then leave them. You can turn probably in about 4 hours or so is what I do. You can turn sooner than that. Don't have to like, you know, glue one up, wait till tomorrow morning to do it. You know, you can kind of keep going through. So kind of keep that in mind. And just fun. You could, I use Type Bond Original. You could take 2 segments, rub them together, set them down here. And if you pick them up like in 5 minutes, you try to break that, you are gonna be amazed. Then you can't break that. And that's 5 minutes of unplanned pressure. So keep that in mind. Okay. So I just worked on it for I'll work on it.
Back up over.
Sort of, kind of. Okay, so with a designated sled, you know, permanent stop. Like I say, I cut 8,000 segments in the last 2 days. I have a few more to cut. But I have. So I have my shop vac hooked up. So as soon as it gets cut, it gets sucked away. Into my canister. So I cut about 40, I'm in. I'm really friends. So, you know, with a Reggie Fred, you can't see it. So if you're gonna do more than a couple, you know, designated flag kind of work.
Which Facebook did you post this?
I put it on our,
Gary, which owner, Facebook?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Are you doing that? Whatever that giant, very good morning.
yes. So, I'm making 2 elk horns. So they're little Swiss ones. Segmented rings that 12 feet long. There's 154 rings, 12 pieces of rings. A couple months ago, I kind of started this. I saw something on Facebook from the Calibrated Elkhorn Society. So I just randomly Facebooked this person. They responded within like 10 minutes. Like 4 days was a Saturday, they were practicing, so I met them at their practice. And it was 6 people with their homies. And kind of really got into it, and I kind of took measurements and did that. 4 days ago, I was just telling Tony, there's a guy in Madison, his daughter is on a Guglaris Elkhorn club or whatever, and he makes mouthpieces for these Elkhorn. And this guy is like so into it, and the B sharp, the B flat or the C sharp, or the actual sound, he's got it down to the roll size and thickness and the type of wood, and he sent me like a huge file with all this stuff, so that's kind of one of my that's it.
Okay, is everyone that brought something for show and tell been up here? Okay, let's do the wood raffle, Dave. Well, we have a $25 woodcraft gift card. We have 3 $10 craft supply gift cards, and then we have all the wood and whatever else is on the table. Your choice. Where did Dave go?
I forgot to buy tickets. I forgot to buy tickets. Oh, well, I'm gonna be careful.
No.
I did turn the stuff I had first.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. First number 370978. 978. 370978. Going. Oh, that's really close. Next one. 370992. 992.
No, I got that.
No worries.
I don't
Thanks.
see it. That's your cheap one.
Got some paperwork we gotta.
371063. 063 371063. Got gift cards. Got a woodcraft card. These are $10 each. And more wood. Next one, 371025. All right. You bought like $50 worth. 371057. 371, here we go. Card or next number 371072. That's me. 371072.
There you go. That's me.
All right. Lucky you. 371091. 091. 371-049. 371-049. All right, in the back row. 371-079. 371-005. 371-052. 052. 371-052. All right. 371-042. 37, okay. 370-972. 370-972. That was my paycheck. 371-074. 074. 371-074. Ricky, don't lose that number. 371-019. All right. 371-087. 0, okay. 371-088. Perhaps nobody wants. 371-027. 027. 371. 371-041. 041.